and welcome to today's webinar on how to optimize SaaS data management solutions. My name is Sarah Underwood. I'm an editor here at 18 Group, and I'll be moderating the webinar. Our expert speakers today are Prahiba Prabhakaran, Vice President, Enterprise Data Analytics Architecture and Strategy, former Voya Financial; Christina Schack, Head of Data Platforms at Vontobel; Julia Bardmesser, CEO at Data for Real; and Devendra Bhudia, Executive Director, Head of Product EDM at S&P Global Market Intelligence. I'll ask them all to introduce themselves in just a moment, but first a few hints and tips for you all watching the webinar today. To the right of your video screen, you'll see two panels, well, one big panel at Slido and two panels inside that. We'll be running three poll questions today, so do please vote in those. And the other section is for your questions, so please post those whenever you would like to, and we'll make sure we try and answer as many as we possibly can during the webinar. So looking forward to you taking part. Okay, let me come back to the speakers and ask them to introduce themselves. Pratibha, would you like to start?
Hey, good morning, good evening, everyone. This is Prahiba Prabhakaran. I've been a technology and data and analytics leader with large financial services institutions for the last 15 plus years. Happy to be here today.
Excellent, thank you. Christina.
Yeah, hello everyone. Also from my side, my name is Christina Schack. I'm heading the data platform team at Bank Vontobel. In my role, we are defining the overall data strategy and data architecture for the whole bank. My team is also implementing the data platform, offering data analytics and data management service. I'm in the financial industry for over 20 years in various data-related roles, data management, data projects, and so forth, working for different financial institutes in the past. And I'm also happy to hear and take part in the discussion.
Great, thank you very much. And Julia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Bardmesser. I've been, as Christina, in this business of building data and technology platforms for over 20 years in large financial companies, including Citi, Deutsche Bank, Voya. I've now started my own consulting firm, and I concentrate on bringing value from data to the companies and making it an organizational priority. And I'm very happy to be here and have that hopefully very fun discussion about SaaS.
Okay, thank you. Dev, over to you.
Hi, my name is Devendra Bhudia. Morning, afternoon, evening to you all. I've been here at S&P for just under 6 years, working in the product management group for EDM. I've been in data management most of my career on the vendor side, but I've done implementations, so worked with a number of clients on buy side and sell side to help implement data management solutions.
Thank you all. I think it's going to be a very good discussion. So let's get started. And coming back to you, if I may, Dev, let's start with an explanation of what we really mean when we say SaaS and the defining features of a SaaS solution.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, firstly, when we say SaaS, just clarify the term, like software as a service. And the reason I think we should do that is when we speak to prospects, existing clients, I think SaaS encompasses a number of terms, like from an industry perspective, like cloud services, it could be managed services, it could be hosted and deployment services. And then, of late, we're hearing things like data management as a service, where it's using a SaaS service, but with additional layers. So in terms of software as a service, clearly it's software delivered by vendors as a service. So our clients are not looking after the infrastructure, the platform. But I think, the benefits of a SaaS platform obviously clearly start off with scale because it's based on cloud platforms. And when you look at the newer solutions that are kind of pure software as a service from ground up, they include things like collaboration and connectivity, user empowerment, and, like customer experience, right? So they put the user first, where when I think of historic platforms and legacy solutions, it was technology first, and the customer was just a user of technology. So, I just wanted to kind of clarify that. So here, in terms of SaaS, it is purely that software as a service component.
Okay, Julia, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Actually, I was thinking we had to explain quite a bit, especially as SaaS solution became something that's becoming more and more prevalent, how to explain that to the business. And one of the things that I found, a comparison that I found very fun and clear, is comparing different types of deployment on making and eating pizza. So if you're doing it on-prem, the way we've been doing things for many years, basically you bring everything to the party, including oven and dough and all the ingredients, and you make it and you serve it on your own table. So that's kind of building our application on-prem. And then it moves through cloud deployment, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and then software as a service. And in all of those moves, more and more services are being supported by the vendor. So when you get to software as a service, you're basically going to a restaurant, you're ordering pizza, and you're doing a little bit of customization, right? You say which toppings you want and how much you want. And then you just eat at the table in the restaurant. So I found that to be one of the best explanations of the differences between different modes of deploying and using the software.
Okay, we'll bear that in mind as we go along. Let's run our first poll question here. As I mentioned, you'll see the post to the right of your video. It is, to what extent do you leverage SaaS-based solutions for data management and operations today? So while you answer that question, let me bring in Pratibha to talk about why SaaS is so relevant to data management.
So if we look at the data management capabilities that one would have to implement in an organization, it's usually a bundle of 8 to 10 different capabilities that forms the data management ecosystem. And organizations would need to weave and interlock these capabilities into a well-architected ecosystems. So in the past, before SaaS became prevalent, it meant organizations have to not only buy those 8 to 10 different solutions, and they might have more than one solution for the same capability. They would have also have to have the specialized infrastructure, the platform teams, the security organizations, and ongoing implementation and support. So as you can imagine, it's 8 to 10 or even more solutions that needs to be all supported within the organization. To the point that Julia was making, right? You need to have multiple ovens for that as an analogy, and specialized teams to be able to handle that. So I think it's very relevant for in this data management space to look at SaaS capabilities and to see where it might be a good fit for the organization to transfer that overhead, especially to the SaaS providers, since it has matured in the last 10 plus years, and there is a lot to take advantage of.
Okay, thank you. Christina, what would you say there in terms of SaaS relevance to data management?
Yeah, I think Pratibha made it a lot of very good points. I think when we look at data management as such, especially for the financial industry, it means bringing a lot of different data sources together. So, and every financial institute has the same task, right? Bringing different data from different sources, it is different formats, different data models, different content somehow together. And that is really the challenge for data management. And on top, and that was also mentioned, there is this technical aspect that you have to run the technical platform and such. So if you have experienced teams who did this type of data integration, data modeling, and so forth again and again and again, you can leverage this know-how and skills. And therefore, I think it's so important having SaaS platforms which run through the exercise, which have become very robust in data integration and so forth. And what I also think is that we need to look at the development in the data in general, in the data industry. I think the volume of data is growing. It's exponential growth, right? So even if you have implemented a solution today, that will not stay for the next 5 years. There are more data sources to integrate, especially, for example, if you look at the ESG data universe, how this really exploded, right? And therefore, it's good that you have a setup which is scalable. That is also something that Devendra mentioned at the beginning, a scalable solution which allow you easy and fast to react to new data requirements.
Okay, that's great. Obviously, useful tools and services. Let's have a look at those poll results, if we may. And Pratibha, if you'd like to comment on those, does that look how you might expect, or is that more or less than you might expect?
So about 50% or so relying on SaaS solutions seems typical because, as I said, the bundle of data management solutions in an organization range anywhere between 8 to 12 different capabilities and solutions for the same. Not all solutions are a good fit for a SaaS platform. So the poll seems to reflect that, right? So you choose the SaaS solution where it's a good fit for the given capability and continue to assess the market, right? I think 29-30% are saying they are looking to migrate in the future, right? That one of the reasons could be the maturity of such SaaS solutions in the market. So.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And we're actually going to run another poll now to see where our audience finds the benefits in SaaS solutions. So it asks, what do you consider to be the greatest benefits of SaaS? And in this one, please feel free to tick as many of the boxes as are appropriate to your organization. And while you do that, let me come to Christina to talk about how she sees the benefits of SaaS data management. We've mentioned quite a few, but let's sum them up here.
Yeah, exactly. So I think one of the biggest benefit is really this integration capability, especially if it comes to existing formats from the outside, where you have only limited possibility to influence the data that you get and influence the formats that you get there. So there is some influence, as Julia mentioned at the beginning, with the pizza part, but it's somehow limited. And I think this is quite an effort, understanding the data and transforming it into the right setup there. So having a platform which did that and can do this is very good. The other part, and I think that was also mentioned at the beginning, is that most base things are now cloud-based, which means also on your technical data infrastructure. You don't have to have all this service running the whole infrastructure team there. So this is taken care of, and especially for financial industries, having a technical infrastructure, it's needed to have, but it's not the core capability or the core focus of the bank. So therefore, I think it's good if you can give it to experts outside. The other thing which I also think is data quality and integrity as a big point. I think if you use solutions which are there out in the market for a while, they already do this kind of data or provide functions for data checks and data cleansing or harmonization in that. And I think that's becoming more and more relevant for that. And the other aspect is also mentioned in the past, being time to market, easy to enhance and to adapt if there are new data requirements. But I think there are many more, and I'm really curious also to see the poll results.
Okay, first let me hear from let's hear from Julia, how she sees the benefits here.
Well, just to me, there are three main, and I'm just going to summarize because Christina really covered it well. The whole, there are a lot of benefits to SaaS solutions, but to summarize, there are, I think, three main benefits. The first one is speed to market. So in solutions that you have to build on-prem and different types of cloud deployments, there is quite a bit of work you have to do before you have the functionality. And if we think about all the SaaS solutions that we use, personal like email, if you have to create an email before you can send an email, that's going to be difficult, right? So speed to market is, to me, one of the main benefits of SaaS solutions. The other one, and I think Devendra mentioned that in the beginning, is ease of use. Especially with more modern SaaS solutions, they do spend a lot of time in making the customer experience really easy and frictionless. So you have a lot of combined knowledge of the vendors who create SaaS solutions to make it easy for you to use. And again, that's one of the benefits. And the last one, of course, we've talked about, it's usually deployed on the cloud, and you have effortless, from the customer perspective, you have effortless scalability. And given the volumes of data, given the speed of processing, the demands of analytics, and now AI, LLM models, the scalability is incredibly important. So I think, again, this is three: speed to market, ease of use, and effortless scalability with the SaaS solutions that give it that market edge. And we see a lot more solutions going SaaS as a delivery mechanisms.
Okay, please maybe see the poll results and let's see what our audience thinks. Well, there you go, Julia. No surprises there?
Yeah.
Yeah? Is that what you might expect, Julia?
Well, yes. Opportunity, expert third party. Yeah. I'm actually surprised that easy access to latest software enhancement is not higher. I mean, it's all of those are good, right? And reduced time to market and flexibility, that was number one for me as well. But I think we will see this easy access to the latest software enhancement might actually, as we evolve and more solutions go that way, we will see that number ticking up a little bit more. Greater user empowerment, I find that one interesting. I mean, it's about 30%, but if you have internal solutions, you design your user experience. If you go with the third party, you're part of much bigger pool of people who are using it. So I'm not sure how greater user empowerment plays in it, other than maybe extensive customization that a lot of SaaS tools allow, which has its pluses and its minuses as well. But yeah, otherwise, I'm not surprised very much with the results.
Okay, thank you, Julia. And let's run a third and final poll question for this webinar to find out what you're actually using SaaS for. So the question: for which data type or use case are you most likely to seek a SaaS-based data management solution? So once again, while you select your answer, please let me come to Dev to talk a little bit about the extent and for what purpose SaaS solutions are most widely used by financial institutions at the moment.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, we clearly see like CRM systems. So I think, they probably started, the industry started there using SaaS-based solutions. Of late, we're seeing solutions around like, data warehousing, data lakes with visualization layers on top. And then we also see that kind of data governance tools as well from a SaaS solution-based perspective. From a core data management perspective, I think, Prabhakar, as you mentioned, a number of capabilities, and some of these capabilities are now moving towards SaaS. I don't think we're there in terms of like full end-to-end data management on a SaaS perspective, because clients are, they're moving there step by step. But clearly, that's what we see at the moment. It's kind of those, I wouldn't call it the most heaviest of lift applications, the light touch ones first. But I'm sure that the industry's got a migration strategy in mind as we move forward in time and more capabilities are delivered by the vendors.
Okay, Pratibha, as a practitioner, what would you say to that in terms of where SaaS solutions are most widely used?
Yeah, I think Dave covered it well. I think it started with the revolution of bringing in SaaS solution for CRM capabilities in an organization. But it had such an impact in the data management space because then the speed at which you were able to kind of implement a CRM solution meant that you're now generating a lot of data that needs to be used for analytics and insights. And that started to kind of show a gap in terms of some of the traditional data warehouses, data marts that one would build on premise and how to maintain. Scalability comes to mind. Back in 2016, 2017, I was with the financial asset manager. We were trying to build their distribution intelligence capability and trying to scale it pretty rapidly. And the on-premise solutions were holding us back because we had to go buy server space, storage, RAM, and they were not fast enough to come. While there was a parallel implementation of a CRM solution going on that was pretty rapid, the data space was holding us back. And we did the first implementation in the cloud with a SaaS or a cloud warehouse as a solution that is now pretty much a playbook for every large asset manager in the industry. So I think there are some low-hanging capabilities, as Dave mentioned, and the data warehouse as a service seems to be one that's pretty sticky. Other capabilities probably are going to take a little bit of time, especially when we think about data quality, metadata type of solutions. They are up and coming. And primarily because a full SaaS solution would require you to ship data out. And some of these providers are still kind of trying to ramp up all the security practices and the security layers that they need to build for large financial institutions specifically for them to adopt them widely.
Okay, thank you very
Just
much.
probably
And
just-
please could we see
so-
the poll results, and it's over to you, Deb, on these ones. Thank you. ESG data coming in second. Deb, what do you think?
Yeah, I would have expected ESG data to be at the top just because it's like the subject of the moment. And with the ever increasing, regulations, the data sets exploding. But it's interesting for pricing data. And I suspect a lot of that, again, because of the historical nature of pricing, the volumes there, I can see why that could be number one. We also see, private assets, with their increasing volumes around private assets and private markets, private credit. And then, the standard bread and butter for data management, securities and party data and index data, I suppose it's at the 10% because the industry is now moving towards SaaS-based data management. If you think about a timeline where data management is kind of on-prem, to move those to SaaS-based solutions, you need a business reason. And I suppose those reasons are now coming, and that's probably why they're there to support, I suspect, ESG and pricing, because you need securities and party as an underpinning for ESG and pricing data as well.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Deb. And then you come back to Julia. Let's dig a bit deeper, and would you tell us how you see the challenges that firms face when they're migrating to a SaaS model for data management? Obviously, it's not just switching a switch.
It's not switching a switch, and as everything that's good about SaaS solution has its other side, right? So one of the main challenges that come out of deploying SaaS solution comes out of the main plus, which is speed to market. It's really easy to get a SaaS solution into your company. And as somebody who's had both the head of data management and the head of enterprise architecture, the fact that it's so very easy for a business user to get their credit card and buy a new SaaS solution, upload some data into it, and do work on it, and nobody ever knows what data went and why it went and who's using it, is actually a big challenge. So that's a proliferation of SaaS solutions is one of the major challenges that comes out of the success of them, right? It's really easy to get SaaS solution into the market, into the company. And out of it, you have control of your data that goes out to multiple solutions. You have interoperability between different SaaS solutions. So some of them come out, a lot of SaaS platforms come out with a lot of ability to bring in and integrate multiple data sets, but not across the entire market. There isn't yet a standard that works for every single software solution where you can easily integrate and just bring it in. So creating that interoperability between multiple SaaS solutions is a big deal. And the third piece is, and that's my kind of personal, not pet peeve, but something that I always was on the watch out when we were negotiating with the SaaS platforms, is that a lot of SaaS platforms are really happy to provide you analytics on the data that they process for you and that create for you. So you can create all kinds of reports and analytics and predictive analytics, what have you, but not all of your data in any one of the SaaS solutions, unless you're using it as a data warehouse on the cloud. You need to get your data back because your insights are on intersections of data between, let's say, CRM system and ERP system. But CRM system will not have your ERP data, and ERP data will not have your CRM data. You want to be able to run insights on both of those. So one of the most one of the challenges that I'm also on watch out is ability to bring the data back, not just the reports or analytics or dashboards and stuff like that.
Okay. Christina, what would you add there?
Yeah, I fully agree to what Julia says. I think, and this is actually where I always would start with, first of all, choosing the right use case, choosing the right scope and the right domain for the SaaS solution, because the first part, if you just look, it's easy to integrate, but then or easy to implement, but then the integration and making the whole operational processes working, I think this is the challenge. So I think that you need to have a big picture of your overall architecture in mind when choosing a SaaS solution, so that you really make sure that it fits, so that you don't fix something on the one end and break things at the other. So I think that's a challenge to think of and really have that in mind. I think it's then also, of course, there are some technical challenges, especially as we are in a very regulated area. So data protection, data security is a big topic. So having the firewalls and interfaces and data agreements and everything sorted out properly, where are the data stored, this cross-border topic, and all of that elements are also relevant. So data security topics are different than if you handle the data on-prem in your own systems. So I think over time, companies have this experience with all these elements, with sharing data, what to consider there. But definitely it's a challenge, because my experience is that all vendor solutions come with slightly different service level, with slightly different sets of how they handle, store the data, process the data, having data security in mind. So these are elements to consider for the SaaS solutions then as well. And the last piece that I would like to mention is really the oversight function and the operating model. This slightly changes, but I think very often people say, okay, then I don't have to care at all. No, you still are. You still have the responsibility, so you need to establish proper oversight function. And for me, this is part of the overall design right from the beginning. Can I later on monitor it? Do I get the full picture of my data? Do I, for example, get the full data lineage and data flows? What does it mean for the operational processes that I'm running?
Okay, thank you. We've talked about the good things, but some challenges to get there. Looking at it from a different perspective, Deb, how can a data management provider take their software and migrate it to SaaS? And how and why did S&P Global adopt SaaS for its EDM solution?
Okay, yeah, there's a number of approaches for migration. So I think that the first one is the obvious lift and shift. So take what you have on premise, and let the provider provide the same software, but basically cloud-based. And again, that's why I kind of said we should clarify the term SaaS, because at that point in time, it is a service given back to the client. It's just that the software is existing. So none of the new features that we hear about in the new SaaS platforms about scalability, usability, it is as it is. And obviously there's the downside of that is, at the moment when you have deployed solutions, they are solutions for that client. It's not truly SaaS because it's not single code base. So obviously the first one is lift and shift. The second one is like a parallel solution. So you can run the existing solution plus your SaaS solution, kind of do some A/B testing. But again, the downside of that is the new SaaS-based solution has probably got richer features, different user interfaces, different integration points with other cloud providers, other solutions. So again, just managing that parallel solution might be an overhead for organizations. Then there's a step-by-step migration, which is kind of a hybrid approach where you could use new functionality in the SaaS-based solution integrated with an on-premise solution. So you could start farming out features to a SaaS-based solution. Another approach would be, we call them use cases. So for example, if a client already had an existing security master on site and they wanted like the ESG mastering or the price mastering, offer that part as a software as a service solution. And eventually over time, migrate the on-premise business use case onto a SaaS-based solution. And I think the final thing that we are seeing, which is kind of related to software as a service, is like data management as a service. So we're seeing the marketplace saying, we're not only after just a SaaS solution where the software is provided as a service, but the client still has to configure it, integrate it. They're asking vendors to say, can you provide the whole solution as a service, even onboarding securities, doing exception management, but again, on a SaaS-based solution. And that kind of goes back to the transparency that was spoken about from Julia. Clients don't want access just to the platform, but also the data that's being cleansed back for them. That's kind of what we're seeing, those different approaches.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I think an appropriate moment to take some audience questions, and I have quite a number here. And Pratibha, perhaps I could come to you first. And this one asks, what are the cost implications of moving from enterprise data management to a SaaS solution?
So I think there is a benefit in terms of the total cost of ownership going from an on-premise type of solution to a SaaS-based solution. But I think it's important to remember upfront in this whole process of evaluating and selecting a solution, whether it's on-prem or a SaaS-based solution, to understand the capability fit and whether that's the right use case, as Christina was saying. Once that's determined, I think from a total cost of ownership perspective, I think there are various dimensions to look at: the support costs, the implementation costs, the licensing model that would change typically from an on-premise deployment that's a perpetual licensing model to now a subscription or a pay-as-you-go type of model. And the other key factor from a cost perspective that is usually overseen is the training costs, because the SaaS solutions are different. And as we were talking about, it's feature-rich. It looks and feels different than the traditional on-premise solutions. How are you going to incorporate some of the training and the upskilling costs as part of adopting such SaaS solutions? I think those are some important dimensions to keep in mind.
Okay, thank you. And coming back to you for something you were just talking about, indeed, it says, please would the panel suggest how best a firm can move from one SaaS solution provider to another? You mentioned that the interfaces are often different, the integration is difficult. How would somebody do that? Best practice. Do you want a moment to think about it, and I'll ask one of the others something else? Okay, I'm going to come to you next, Christina. And this one says, what is the interface between the SaaS client and provider? Who should it be and how does it work? I think you touched on that when you were talking about what you should be thinking about before setting up a SaaS solution. Who is that person, or is it a team?
I think in general, it's definitely a team. Well, at least I can speak for Vontobel, and this is how it works, because there's so many aspects to consider. I think this is a team part. Ideally, so what we in general do is we're building a kind of checklist or questionnaires or topics to really see what are the requirements, what are the pros and cons, and then making a confirmed decision with all the different aspects that are there. So what I mentioned before is also when it comes to the challenges, there are different dimensions in the challenges. There are technical challenges when it comes to IT connectivity part, the security pieces and legal elements. So from my perspective, there is a kind of process in place which really takes these pieces together and gets the decisions and the assessment from the different departments. So here at Vontobel, we have an IT department looking at the technical capabilities and setups and topics there. We always check with our legal department, and we always check with the risk and security department if there's something special to consider. Of course, in general, it's then the department that wants to use the services who makes the decision, but it's an informed decision with including the different stakeholders.
Who, Christina, which kind of team has the actual relationship with the SaaS provider?
I think for us, it's definitely then later on in the IT department who has that. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Julia, coming to you. How can we build a business case that will help us win management buy-in for SaaS solutions?
I don't think you build a business case for SaaS solution per se. You build a business case for the capability that you need to bring, and then you evaluate what is the best deployment of that capability. I think deployment structure is one, or deployment model is one of the dimensions of solutions that you are considering. I would not be building business case specifically for SaaS as opposed to on-prem or as opposed to other ways. It's what are you trying to do? What is the business capability? What is the business value that you're trying to support? And then what are your options? And then SaaS solution, I mean, we've talked about the flexibility, the ease of use, the scalability. So there are a lot of considerations there. There are also considerations that go kind of against it as well. You need, especially for data warehousing solutions as a SaaS, you really need to think about how the cost is going to play out long term, since it's a completely different way of incurring costs. So again, just going back to the first point, it's not so much you're building business case for a SaaS solution, you're building a business case for a data management capability, and then SaaS solutions would be, at this point, probably majority of your options anyway.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Very good point. Deb, I'm going to come back to you with a different question, unless you want to take that one on as well. Yeah,
No
different one. Okay, this one asks, would you recommend a SaaS solution in a public or private cloud?
So that's an interesting question, because the distinction between public and private, because ultimately all the cloud providers ultimately are public clouds with private spaces, right? So obviously we're underpinned by a major cloud provider, and they offer public services. But again, the services that we consume are ring-fenced, only accessed by us, and then only accessed by clients that we expose our applications to. But clearly for data management, it should be a private space. And even within that, when we talk about software as a service, it should even be tenanted, and the tenant should be private as well. Because we know from data vendors, you're not allowed to commingle the same data across different clients. You have different retention rules from different clients. You have different data residency rules. Each region has different compliance and regulations around that data. So it's got to be private. It's got to be ring-fenced right down to the client. And even within the software as a service model, each client has different configurations which can't be shared. So you are securing right down to a tenant. And even within a tenant, where an organization may have multiple departments, you may have to segregate down to that level as well.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to jump back for a moment. And Julia, you note you'd like to make a comment on the cost question. So please fire away.
So I just, and I think I just made that comment when I was talking about the business case. One of the things that I have seen now among the companies that have moved into cloud-based SaaS data warehousing solutions, that some of the costs came out a lot higher than they were expecting when they were making the case. Some of it is because it's a different cost structure. So some of it just people didn't realize that now you have to think about total cost of ownership completely different. It's a different model. It's by usage. Some of it was that there was not enough consideration paid for figuring out what is the use case that you're trying, how you're going to use your data, what's the volume of the data, how often you're going to use the data. And all the platforms are not the same. And you need to know how your use case aligns with the platform, as opposed to going to, especially when all of this started. I remember going to a bunch of dinners, and I have a bunch of people around, data management dinners, and people say, I'm using vendor such and such, and we have a really wonderful experience. So we come back and we say, so-and-so similar company uses the vendor X, and we should probably go and use the vendor X. But that's not a good way to select. Because I've been now talking to a lot of people that there are surprises. So my advice on the cost question is to really analyze how you're going, what is your use case, what's the maximum, and run proof of concepts, multiple vendors, to understand what your total cost of ownership is going to be 3-5 years down the road.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much indeed. I think that's all the time we have today for questions. So thank you to our audience for your questions, and of course to our speakers for their answers. Back to my questions, and Christina, how would you gauge and quantify the added value of migrating to a SaaS-based solution? We talked a little bit about that, but is it possible to sort of pin this down?
Yeah, I think we mentioned a lot. It depends on the solution, on the setup, and as Julia properly mentioned, if you do it wrong, then you have not benefits, but additional costs, so to speak. So it's a bit difficult to quantify the cost. I think what you can do is definitely when from the technical side, see what you currently run on local service, what the management task on the things that you have on the technical infrastructure, what are the savings there. And this again brings me to the point that you have to choose the use case properly. If you still have to run the same service just with less effort or with less use cases on, then it might be not a good case because you don't have any cost savings there or operational savings there. So really choosing the right setup there, that's something. But definitely, I think on the infrastructure side, this is a benefit where you can gain added value. And then the other piece, I think, and that's a bit the difficult piece, is the scalability. I think we say it's a business opportunity, right? Having this time to market feature, being able to adapt fast. And therefore, again, it depends on the selection of the use case. So if you take ESG, where we know that there are further developments ongoing, maybe that's a good case. Because then you can say, okay, if there are new regulatory requirements, we have to generate a new regulatory report. This is something that we don't have to develop our own, because this is where the SaaS solution can help and provide the functionality for that. So I think these are the two things. One, maybe you can really quantify in cost, more on the technical side, and then on the business opportunity side or on the efficiency side. I think that's a bit difficult to quantify. It's then a kind of assessment for yourself and for your use case where you see the benefits.
Okay, thank you. Pratibha, would you add to that?
Yeah, and I think probably keeping or developing a framework, which probably organizations already do, but paying attention to how you would evaluate SaaS solution is probably critical, right? To the facets that Christina mentioned, be it on the softer metrics for the business value or the hard ROI coming from a technology cost, overhead cost being saved. I think it's important for that to be something that you define upfront, you capture and compare and contrast that to other solutions, non-SaaS solutions that you would want to bring about. But use that as an ongoing framework, come back and revisit that to make sure that the SaaS solution that you did buy, because some organizations may not choose to do a very long-term, because it's a pay-as-you-go model. You can do a 12-month term, 18-month, 36-month term, but you have to constantly come back to that framework and evaluate whether the SaaS solution still makes sense in your organization. Some of the key metrics, I think, that might be helpful to adopt as part of that framework. We talked about the total cost of ownership. Time to value might be an interesting metric to figure out and track. Again, it's not a hard metric that you can really tie back to business value, but time to value, probably an interesting one to track. And if we are able to get to quantify the risks that have been avoided or mitigated, that would be really good to incorporate in this framework.
Okay, thank you. When you're out there in the market, what are people expecting in terms of added value, and what can be delivered?
Yeah, I think from a data management perspective, when we say data management, I think if we narrow that down to like the use cases, right? So security master, party masters, the ESG data sets, position transactions, and so forth. I think what the industry is now looking for in SaaS-based solution is like opinions. So there's lots of vendors out there, SaaS-based, where you can take those solutions, integrate them, build your own solutions, fulfill your own business needs. But I think that we reached a point in time where your standard use cases, there are templates. The industry, the security master is security master, but clearly every client wants the capability to extend that security master. So clients are looking for that basis. And we're seeing that more and more, like especially with the ESG, that there's a myriad of vendors out there. There's vendor consolidation. There's different delivery models for those ESG data sets, and the volumes are increasing, and the regulations also coming. So they're looking for vendors to provide that opinion. What should we be doing for these regulations? What are the data sets? How should they integrate? What the integration points and what the best practices? So that's the starting point. So, the starting point has moved from let's take generic solutions and build our own mastering solutions to what's your opinion as a vendor and experts, not only in like data management platforms, but also data sets as well, with the expertise and knowledge we have in-house. So I think when it comes to what we're talking about time to value, it's bring more value with your solution. Don't just give me a platform with features and capabilities.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. And moving on to a practical question, and I'm going to come to you first on this one, Julia, and ask, would you provide some practical guidance on deploying and optimizing SaaS models? Let's skip the bit about the business case and having to have one. Let's get to the practical bit. Do you need a lot of specialist staff? Is that something that takes a year? Probably not. But what is the practicalities here?
So on the practical side, so again, the first one is do have a governance process around bringing SaaS solutions in. You have to balance speed to market with proliferation challenge. So speed to market benefit and proliferation of SaaS solution challenge. And that governance process could be, the weight of it could be very specific to your company, but do have a governance process. The second one, and that's a really important one, don't over customize. A lot of really good SaaS solutions provide almost endless opportunities for customization. But keep in mind, right, the pizza analogy, you're coming to a restaurant and you are selecting toppings for your pizza. If you end up coming to a restaurant and bringing your own brand of tomato sauce and some cheese that you specifically like, you're probably not taking advantage of the SaaS model, and you need to consider a different model, or you need to consider a different SaaS solution that fits better with your needs. So don't over customize, because a lot of total cost of ownership advantages of SaaS will go out of the window. And the third one, and I mentioned it in the beginning, and that's so very important, I'm going back to it, and I will probably go back to it once more. Don't forget your data. So SaaS solutions have your data. They will provide you all kinds of analytics, but make sure you're able to get that data out into your own analytical environment, so you can combine and get insights on intersections in all of your internal and external data.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. And Dev, from your perspective, how do you see the practical issues?
So I think practically what we've seen is when prospects and customers look at SaaS solutions, I think when we start engaging with them, what we quickly notice is they should start with the total operating model first and work down. With these SaaS-based solutions, it's very easy to say, I'm going to replace my existing solution X with solution Y. I think that's clearly the wrong approach, because the whole paradigm with SaaS solutions has changed. And if you marry that with what we're seeing today with exploding data sets, the influx of AI, ML, all cloud-based, it's what are the total capabilities you need across that total operating model, then break that down to the right capabilities and vendors. So, take a step back and try and avoid the mistakes of the past by bringing in multiple vendors, multiple solutions, and multiple features, and then trying to stitch them together. The other aspect is user training on onboarding. These are new solutions. They're new paradigms and new ways of working. So with SaaS-based solutions, we also talk about empowering the user. Okay, so we're trying to move away from like low-level IT projects into business-driven projects, which goes back to what Julie was saying, is anybody should be able to use these solutions, but provide governance and a clear path to say we're moving functions that traditionally used to live in this part of our organization towards the business and being self-empowered, but putting a framework around that, because the last thing you would want are like your data stewards going in, changing data quality, adding rules, removing rules, which impact the whole organization. There needs to be clear governance, man. What is user empowerment and how far can it go?
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. And coming towards the end of my questions and our time today, let me come back to Pratibha and talk a little bit about how she sees the business and operational gains of SaaS. Obviously, we've touched on this already. Can you just gather those together for us?
Yeah, I think the business benefit obviously would be the faster time to market, and to be able to unlock those business capabilities that they are seeking at a faster pace. But in order to do that, I think it's important to assess the use case, going back and re-emphasizing what Christina and others have mentioned. I think it's, in order to reap that benefit, I think it's very important to understand for which use case you're determining SaaS solution fit, so that you can quantify that time to market value as well. On the operational side, I would emphasize that the gain probably is going to come from the deployment models, and lower support costs are probably some of the significant advantages. But in order to reap those benefits, again, I think one has to assess the various different deployment models of a SaaS solution, comparing and contrasting to traditional software solutions, on-premise solutions, and to take advantage of the same.
Okay. Christina, what's your experience there, gathering up, having done all this and then looking back, the business and operational benefits you've experienced?
Yeah, I think many things have been said, and I think one aspect that I also want to bring in is, and that was just slightly touched, I think, also by Julia, it's really the standard data model. What I realized from the business, especially if you have to bring in a new use case, sorting out the data, what do you all have to consider to have the data ready to use? I think this is where SaaS solutions help, because they come with a predefined model. This has pro and cons, of course, but it also has the pro, especially in an area where you have to gain expertise and know-how. This is especially where there are already some guidance in how to integrate the data and using the data. Imagine if you have to build your own solution from scratch. There is a lot of design thinking and things like that. So if you don't have this data modeling skills or business analyst skills there, I think this is exactly where these solutions can help in acquiring new data areas or new data domains. The other aspects I think were mentioned now very often. It's really this operational efficiency and also the time to market piece. I think this would be also for me one of the most benefits.
Okay, thank you very much. So that can be the end result if you get it right, and we've talked about how to get it right. So finally, I'd like to ask all our speakers to offer some advice on how practitioners can maximize the value of SaaS-based solutions. Let's start with you, Pratibha, if we may.
A lot of points have been touched upon, trying to get to the other questions, but I think one point I would like to emphasize is understand your organization's data security posture, because I think it's very important to understand that when you're trying to match it with a SaaS solution. In my past experience, I think, especially when a business is coming to the table, as others mentioned, like the business can swipe a credit card and bring a SaaS solution and purchase them. With that kind of the ease of onboarding with the SaaS solution, I think it's important to understand how that solution fits within your data security posture, which then ties to the importance of having that SaaS governance playbook and framework well embedded throughout your sourcing and purchasing process, and then having a framework around assessing a capability gap and matching that up with SaaS or other solutions in the market in order to have the best out of the solutions that you can get out there.
Okay, thank you. Christina, what advice would you offer?
Yeah, so again, if I would just have to summarize 3 elements to consider. Proper evaluation of the use case, really make sure that you don't take the scope too small or too large and that it's really fit for the purpose that you want to achieve. And the second one is having the whole data architecture in mind, thinking of how you combine it with the other setups, with other SaaS solutions, with other internal infrastructure that you have, so that you don't break it up, the whole data integration piece there. And the third one is also having later on the operational aspects in mind. So what does it mean for the operating model? What does it mean for the services that you need from the provider, but also what does it mean for your operating model, for your processes to run, and that you don't lose efficiency there.
Thank you very much indeed. And over to you, Julia.
So I'm going to double down on match SaaS solution you're selecting to the business case. So understand what you're trying to achieve and select the SaaS solution that moves you there without overly customizing it. The second one, and I've talked about it throughout, but I'm going to make point of it again, is don't forget your data and bring your data back into your analytical environment. And the third piece is control proliferation. Keep speed to market, take advantage of speed to market, but find a way to control proliferation of SaaS solutions in your company.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And some final words from you, please.
Yeah, I think I agree with everybody's like understanding the business goals and aligning to the business. We've done too many IT projects historically. The next one is around the configuration. I agree, don't customize the hell out of your solution. The vendors are now coming to market with best of breed or well-formed opinions across a wide client base. And I think the third one is like regularly assess the alignment of that SaaS capability to what you require. Vendors are releasing new features in a more timely fashion, and those features are being released for a reason. So continually assess your business, assess what's being delivered, and see if you can marry the two to lessen your time to market for new features, capabilities, and align with your business.
Thank you. Thank you indeed, Deb. And thank you to all our speakers for sharing your expertise and experience today. Thank you too to S&P Global Market Intelligence for sponsoring today's webinar. Before we close, just a few 18 group items that may be of interest to you. You can sign up to join our next Data Management Summit London, which we'll host at Hilton Canary Wharf on the 14th of March. Not that far away, although it seems so, but coming up quite soon. And you can register for our next Data Management Summit New York City, which is after the summer on the 26th of September. Finally, you can download the 11th edition of 18 Group's very popular Regulatory Data Handbook. It's the 2023 edition. It's not really reading material, but it's a very useful thing to have. That said, that's it for today. So thank you again to Pratibha, Christina, Julia, and Dev. And thank you to all of you who have taken part in the webinar. Please complete our feedback form, as we are always keen to hear your views and improve our products. Meantime, thanks again and goodbye.